This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
Welcome to the House of Hockey podcast. Back with a brand new episode. I'm your girl, Rae Rae.
And I'm Breezy.
And on this episode, we have an amazing interview. All of our interviews are amazing. But this one is with Brent Wallace, who is a reporter and correspondent for TSN, and he covers the Ottawa Senators. And he shares some incredible stories about his life on the road because he travels with the team, but also some personal stories with players and some really incredible looks at his life as a hockey reporter who follows the team and all the incredible stuff he's encountered. It's really, you're really in for a treat. Breezy, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he gives us kind of some personal stories that, has to do with some players that he's had more of an interaction with that's deeper than a reporter, I guess, quote unquote, that you would say. It's more of a personal level and just kind of shows how down to earth a lot of these guys are and how, they're willing to pretty much do anything for the fans. So yeah, this is an exciting one. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, life update. You go. What's up? My life's the same.
It's the same. Absolutely the same.
Okay. That's what I thought.
And we're about a week out from previous episodes, so we record once a week. So the fact that our life has pretty much been the same week after week just kind of shows it. We get excited to record each and every week so we can talk a little bit more hockey with an outside person that we're not in the house with. So
exactly. I mean, I'm still practicing. I took a practicing hockey learning. I took a virtual Zoom class with Pavel Barber at Hey Barber. He was running a class that I took, and I mean, I almost quit halfway through because I didn't understand half of the drills, but I kept going and I get the reporting so I can keep practicing. And my green biscuit finally came and I've got my stick and I'm just working the drills. But other than that, life, work stuff, all that's sort of the same, but not going anywhere.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's me. I'm working and still chucking along on my photography courses and editing courses. Not like video editing, because God save me, I can't do that. But
I'm sure I could. It's actually. Okay. You could.
Yeah, I could, but it's okay. We obviously talked to Brent a little bit about some fun things as a reporter, what they can do. So I thought it might be kind of cool to ask you if you can attend a Stanley Cup party, would you go? And if you did, whose would you want to go to? I mean, it could be someone who hasn't won the cup yet, maybe who has, or maybe it's one from this past. Like, would you go to anyone from the Blues, one of their parties?
I would definitely go to a Stanley Cup party if I was invited. 100%. Okay. I'm going. I'm there. Mm-hmm. I'm dropping everything in my life and I'm going. Now, would I go to a Blues, though?
What if I make it mandatory that you answer going to a Blues?
I mean,
You'd wear a Blackhawks jersey. Never mind.
No, I wouldn't wear a Blackhawks jersey. I'm not that asshole. Would I go to a Blues? I would go. Come on, you got to go. But yeah, I would. Whose party would I go to?
Yes.
Like, ideal person to party with. I think somebody like a Brent Burns would be really fun. Like, okay. I would imagine he would throw a really fun party.
I feel like we'd be shotgunning beers and hunting.
Yeah, but I think it would be interesting and
That'd
fun.
be fun. Yeah.
I think it would be cool to go to a party out like overseas, like in Europe, like with one of the players who are from Europe. And if they take the cup
Hmm.
home, I think it would be really cool to see that reaction.
That'd be cool.
Um, but again, I wouldn't touch the cup. I would take a
Yeah.
picture with it, but I would not touch the cup because I believe, as I've said before, that
Yeah.
unless my team's won, I wouldn't. What about you? I don't know. I don't have any like particular player in mind. I mean, I think you just, if somebody says, come to this player's cup party, you just fucking
Yeah.
go and you
Yeah,
would
that's
have
true.
an amazing time. But what
Yeah.
about you? Would you go to the Blues? Same all to you. Answer those.
Um, yeah. So I would definitely go. I think that Jordan Jordan Bennington's party looked pretty cool. Um, I feel like I'd probably want to go to his, or would have gone to his if I obviously had the opportunity, but obviously I don't because I'm nobody. I'm just somebody. In general though, like I think I have to agree with you. I think someone in Europe would be kind of cool to go to. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd ever want to go to like a Vegas party. I feel like that just gets a little too rowdy. But I wouldn't probably touch the cup unless it was like my team or one of my teams, but I would definitely waterfall a beer out of the cup.
Yes. I second
Yes,
that. I
because it'd
would
be cool.
drink, I would try to drink, drink out of it, maybe without touching it. I don't know. I'd have to
Would you
really,
like keg stand it and just like put your face in the top?
yes, I would just, you know what? Just give me a straw. Just give me a straw and I'll put
Are
it in the
you a
cup.
straw drinker?
I do. I have a straw, but it's colorful and happy. Look, it's pink.
Yeah, you and
And
your
it's
pink.
reusable.
Pink
It's just
straws,
fun.
pink face masks.
Face mask. Who, if you could interview anyone in the hockey world, who would you want to interview?
Um, gosh. I like stories. I feel like hearing people's stories are really cool, and someone who I think would probably have really fun stories is kind of a, I wouldn't say he's a bad boy, but I think he does kind of have a little bit of a reputation. He has won 2 Stanley Cups, so he's probably got some Stanley Cup party, vibes. And I feel like he probably had some fun party days before he got married. So I'm going to say Drew Doughty.
Oh, Dowdy. I thought you were going to say Brad Marchand. You said Drew Dowdy.
Oh,
Okay.
no. No. I mean, I would also probably do Matthew Tkachuk because I kind of have a little crush on him, which is the polar opposite of what I should say because for Kings fans, there's always like a thing between Drew and Matthew. So,
Interesting.
yeah, that's kind of weird.
Drew
I
would,
probably shouldn't have said
that's
that.
okay. No, but you're right. There is a rivalry
Yeah.
there. I think Drew would be a really good one to interview. You know who I would want to interview? I would want to interview Coach Q. I feel
Yeah.
like that guy has been not just, yeah, you're like, of course Rachel the
No,
Blackhawks
no,
fan
no.
wants to interview Q, but I think, I mean, he's the winningest coach in the NHL. He's been in this league forever.
Yeah.
He's seen a lot. He's coached so many players, and I just
Yeah.
think he would have some interesting stories. And I mean, he just seems like a really cool guy to hang out with.
Yeah.
I
If I
think
had to
he,
choose a coach, he would be the coach I would want to
oh
interview for sure.
yeah, he's not a fucking player. That's right. This question is, what player would we want to interview?
No, no,
And
it's fine.
let's see. I mean, I've had the opportunity to interview a handful of players when I was on the red carpet at the NHL Awards in 2019.
Which we will get to later in this episode.
Yes, we will. You're right.
Which is
We
and I
will.
actually have a couple photos from that as well that we're gonna post on Instagram. So
Yes. Yes, because that is where I met the guest for this week, which
yep.
is TSN's Brent Wallace. And he was kind enough to take a lot of those photos for me. But you'll hear about that coming up in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, so that was a really interesting experience. Let me think. I'm just like scrolling through in my head players I would want to interview.
You know who else would be really fun to interview
Huh?
in general is parents. parents of players or parents of coaches, although I feel like players' parents would be more interesting. Maybe not more interesting. I'm not trying to obviously take away from coaches, but just training and kind of going up and raising your player to seeing them win their first game and stuff like that. So that'd be cool.
I think, what's it, Matt Duchene, or is it Duchenne? Is that how does he say it?
I think it's Duchene.
Duchene, okay.
Yeah.
He would be a cool person to interview because he plays music and he plays hockey, and his little son from just seeing on Instagram, it looks he's so adorable. I want to hear
his
stories.
Dog.
Yes.
His dog. Obsessed.
Yes. I think he would be somebody that would be interesting to interview, hear his story. But yeah. That's what I got. I don't know. I mean, I'll take anybody. I don't know. I sort of forget, Breeze, because it's like when we're not doing the podcast, and in my other life, my other day job life, I've had the opportunity, and I've really been really lucky to interview so many different athletes and celebrities and people that I'm just fascinated with all of it. I love talking to people, and I don't know that I really have any like bucket list people.
Yeah. I respect that.
I
get that.
Yeah, like I'm floored to get to interview some of these people. And even when I'm interviewing certain people, I'm just like, it takes me a minute where I have to go, okay, you can't fangirl. You have to this is like,
that's funny.
But at the same time, like I don't fan out. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to do that. I'm a professional, but it's it takes my brain a minute after I finish those interviews to go like, oh, I just interviewed Ryan O'Reilly, who's standing with the Stanley Cup right in front of me. That just happened. And like, I can't
That's pretty cool.
compute it, because in the moment I have to I'm interviewing him, and I'm listening to him, and I'm talking to him, and I'm getting those questions and answers that I need. And I'm not thinking about the fact that, this is Ryan O'Reilly, but it's an interesting mix when players are involved, because you're like, oh, this is so cool. But then you're like, wait, I have to get my job done. So.
Right. Which is kind of like a benefit for you, because you obviously, this is your day job is interviewing people, and you feel like you're so good at like keeping your composure when you're around people that most people like me, like I don't really get starstruck or anything like that. Like I kind of look at people as being just like everybody else, but I feel like I'm very introverted. So like when it comes to things, I'm just so quiet. So like, you're good about that.
I had to learn quickly they're just people, and my job is more, that's the priority. The priority is to ask them questions, get the stories, get them to talk to me, and not just give me the Jordan Binnington answer of yeah or no,
Right.
And got to get a little, you got to get a little more out of them. And it's, but I love it. I mean, I love what I do. I love talking to people, anybody, not just the famous people. I have interviewed, like thousands of people over the years, and people who aren't famous are just as interesting to me. And it's just what I love to do. So any NHL players listening, come on the podcast.
We have something really cool. So we have a contest going on with our podcast network, the Hockey Podcast Network, where if you buy a jersey through we're starting over.
This is a nightmare.
Okay.
I was so hungry, and the food I ate, and it's it's like just kicking in, and my energy is just coming back up. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start again. Should I just go off? I'll go off the script.
Just read the script.
Yeah. Cool. So we have a contest going on with coolhockey.com. So if you're a jersey lover and you need an excuse to buy a new jersey, winning a Cool Hockey gift card should be reason enough. So from now, May 1st to June 1st, any jersey purchased through our link will automatically enter you into a draw to win a $175 gift card from coolhockey.com. So all you have to do is go to coolhockey.com/THPN, and that is THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network. You buy a jersey that you probably should already have by now, but if not, it's totally cool. You can get it now. We will also give you 75% off of your order using the code THPN. So once you buy your jersey on coolhockey.com/THPN, use the code THPN. Let us know once you buy it. Shoot us a little message on Twitter, DM, whatever you want to do. Let us know that you purchased. We will match up your name with your purchase and enter you into the live draw that will be announced on June 6th. And that's all you got to do. Just buy a jersey before June 1st. You have a shot at winning a $175 gift card. And if we notice that there are 10 orders before May 15th, we will actually make that gift card $200. So go get yourself a jersey, use code THPN for 30% off, which is about $75 off of your jersey at coolhockey.com/THPN. And hopefully you can win $175. If not, $200. So I think I'm actually going to take part of this deal, and I'm going to go buy myself a jersey. So
what are you going to get?
I don't know. Who should I get?
I don't know. Who are you missing in your collection?
Well, see, my problem is that I want to get a jersey at the actual arena that I visit. So I don't know who I'd want to get. Maybe I get a blank one.
Yeah, I mean, I only have one. I feel like
you need to get one.
I feel like I need to get one. I like just like the red Blackhawks jersey, or if they have throwbacks, I like the throwback jerseys, but I don't.
Would be good.
Yeah, I don't like picking a name. I don't know, maybe I should just get a Kane, like a Patrick Kane jersey just to have, because that's wicked cool to have, just like when he played, he's a legend. He only played for the Blackhawks, like, at least for as of today and for the next 2 or 3 years. But I think I should invest in that and have that. That's the one I would get.
So go to coolhockey.com/THPN. Again, that's THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network, and use code THPN to get 30% off. So take advantage up until June 1st.
And we'll post all of this on our social media. If you're like, what are the rules? What do I have to do? What they say? We'll make sure to post on our story or somewhere on our Instagram and our Facebook and our Twitter, all the rules of how to enter.
Yep.
We are starting a new segment here on the podcast where we really want to hear from you, hockey fans, and hear your best or most memorable story of interacting with an NHL player, either past or present. And here is the first one.
Hello, my name is Patrick Hoffman, and I am calling you guys to tell you a story about Mike Richter with the New York Rangers. The story happened about 25 years ago. My dad was working then for head coach Colin Campbell, and Campbell invited my dad and I to go on a road trip with the Rangers to Montreal to see the Rangers and Habs play back in, I think, March of 1995. So at the time, Mike Richter, he was my favorite player. He was my idol. I was a goalie, he was a goalie, so it makes perfect sense. Now, up until that point, I was having trouble stopping penalty shots. Sure, I was only 0 for 2, but I needed to fix it. So while in the airport, I saw Richter, like a duty-free shop looking at a magazine. So I went up to him, and I introduced myself and told him that I was having trouble stopping penalty shots and a little bit of trouble stopping breakaways. So what he did absolutely amazed me. He took 3 candy bars. He took 2 for the net, 2 little Three Musketeer bars. He took a Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup as the goalie, and he took some other piece of candy bar to show it as the forward coming in on the goalie. He then showed me how to stop a penalty shot using all these candy bars. And since then, I have not allowed a goal on a penalty shot, and I would say, my breakaway percentage is probably in the 90s, all because of how Mike Richter told me how to come out aggressive, how to wait for the shooter to make his move, and it's something I will absolutely never forget.
What a great story. And we know there are so many other amazing stories out there of fans like you interacting with NHL players, either past or present. And if you have a story that you want to share with us here on the podcast, we would love to hear it. You can just call our phone number, 323-438-2648. Again, 323-438-2648. State your name, state the NHL player and the team they play for, and then tell us the story in your own words in 5 minutes or less, and that's it. We've got a real NHL hockey insider joining the podcast. Welcome, Brent Wallace, the Ottawa Bureau reporter for TSN's Sportscentre. Does it go da-da-da, da-da-da there?
It does. It's the same music. It's fantastic.
It is Canada's #1 sports news and information program, and Brent's been covering the sports scene there for 22 years. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah, August 98, I think was the first day I was hired here.
Amazing. Well, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm
all
glad.
the way on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm glad they allowed you to do interviews with us.
I don't have a whole lot to do right now, Rachel.
Well, before we jump into the questions and have you talk all about the Sens and all of the hockey things and everything that's going on currently, I want you to tell the story from your perspective of how you and I met. I want to hear your perspective on what went down.
Wow, okay. I got to think about this. This might be the toughest question I've had in years. We met on the red carpet at the NHL Awards. I was standing next to you. And then I just think I helped you out and ended up taking pictures when you were doing interviews so you could post them on social media.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, you did. You were so nice. And that's you've been doing this a long time. I've been on red carpets before, and not all of the reporters who stand next to each other are very friendly or very nice for that matter. And you were very nice and made sure to send some of the players over to me that you knew. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate that, because there's some people.
Sorry, here's why. You were so excited to be there.
I was so excited.
And I've covered it every year that it's been in Vegas. And I don't know if that's 10 years or not. It's somewhere around there. And so I'm a little jaded. Same guys you just saw last week win the Stanley Cup, all that stuff. But you were genuinely like, this is so cool. I love it. And I love your enthusiasm for it. I was like, I will do whatever I can to help you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was so excited. It's like a little embarrassing, but it was like a little kid at Christmas just to be like, oh my God. And like to just be in that world was so exciting for me. So thanks.
All right, you're very welcome. I do it anytime.
Thanks. Well, all right. Well, let's start then with just the current state of affairs with the team and the players, and it's official. Everybody is recovered from COVID-19, the virus, right? All 5 and 1 of the members of the staff, right? What's the update? What can you tell us? We're very happy to hear that everyone's okay.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what comes out of all this, is that everybody so far is what they tell us is fully recovered, or at least on their way to being fully recovered. There is 5 players, none of them being named, 1 staff member. There's also 1 broadcaster who was on that trip as well, Gord Wilson from TSN 1200 Radio, who also contracted COVID-19. He's struggling a bit more than the other guys, but he's starting to come around. And so he kind of gets left off because he's not a member of the organization. So whenever they talk about the organization, they don't mention him. But really, it's 7 people that went on that trip, and they have pinned it back to San Jose somehow, some way, that it was when they contracted it there. And so definitely good news to see. And of course, it just seems typical of the Ottawa Senators, the way things have gone, that they would come down with this. I mean, it's just one thing after another with this organization. And unfortunately, this is one of the latest.
Yeah. And the team was in LA. That was the March 11th when they played the Kings. That was one of the final right? To be played in the league. So what does your broadcaster life currently look like now, since you were on the road with the team, but you're now obviously not on the road, and you're safe and you're healthy and all of that, right?
You're looking at what I do right now. We've now set up, all the reporters for TSN have set up offices we do Zooms and all the interviews obviously through our computers or laptops or whatever it is. And so
Right.
this has now become it. On the side though, I think I've painted 7 rooms of my house. I've cleaned everything. I've done a garage twice. Like, I need to get back to work to slow down a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's allowing for all of us to do stuff right now.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because it's obviously a scary situation, and we can only do our little bit of a part in all this, but really it's certainly thrown obviously a wrench into everything of what we do normally and how it's affected all our daily lives.
I bet. I mean, what was life before all of this happened? I mean, what was the kind of day in the life of you as a reporter?
That's a good question, Breezy. Let me try and think here. If it's game day, it would be like practice is at 10:30 a.m. So you're up at, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock to try and find out what's going on as you go in there and think of your storylines. And then it's full game or a full morning skate. Then it's do your stuff from then. And then it's the game and the broadcast and all that. And then, so it's like a 16-hour day, I think.
Wow.
And now it's trying to line up interviews and do a couple of interviews a day. And so it's certainly slowed down, but now we need to find a way to generate more content because obviously there's nothing going on. And so we try daily to try and talk to players or even different sports, different teams, whatever we can find to try and fill some content here. Sportscentre had gone off the air for, I'm not sure if it was a week, something like that. And we just recently come back up on Monday, April 6th. And so now we're trying to fill a half-hour sports show every day, which is obviously a challenge when there isn't any sporting events going on.
Right. Jeez, that's crazy. Do you have a favorite part about being a reporter?
Oh, so good question. As Rachel said, it's been 22 years of doing TSN, so you get a little jaded and you take it for granted sometimes. And so this has been a pretty good reset. I love the travel. And sometimes it gets crazy and hectic and you get delayed and all that stuff. But really, those are some pretty first world problems. And so I love flying. I don't have any idea what's going to happen that day. It seems like every flight I'm on gets delayed. And so that part I enjoy. I don't have an office. Well, I do now, but I didn't have an office. It would be whatever the facility was or whatever sporting event we'd be at. And so that I liked of my office would be where we're at and whatever we're doing that day. So that's probably the best part.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite spot to travel to?
Ooh.
Just firing them off right now.
Yeah.
Go for it.
That's good. I should probably have done some prep work. Europe. I've had a chance to do 3 or 4 world championships, and I've done an Olympics in London and a World Junior in Ufa, Russia, which is probably the craziest place I've ever been.
Okay.
But I love Europe. So I was disappointed because this year I was supposed to go back and do the World Championships again in Switzerland. And so you get to spend a month in spring in Europe. It's fantastic. There's really no complaints. And they were supposed to do training camp for Team Canada in London. So I was looking forward to going back there. But Europe is probably my favorite. If I had to pick a city, I really liked London when I did the Olympics there. So I'm going to probably say London.
Okay.
Now, if it's North America, do you want me to pick a North American venue where we go to the most? I love Nashville. As most people I think do, and they get to only go there for a couple of days and they really enjoy it. Nashville is a pretty good one to me. New York is obviously pretty good, but Nashville, I try to make sure I get on every trip.
Yeah, it's a fun time out there.
Breezy loves.
I mean, I'm always in my hotel room, but I've heard it's really a good time there.
Yeah,
Breezy loves Nashville.
Oh, how do you know?
Yeah. It's my favorite city ever. It's great.
What you casually mentioned Russia. Can we go back to Russia and can you give us some insight on what the heck that life really is like? Just tell us all the Russia things.
So it was Ufa, Russia, which was, I think it's a 13-hour difference between Eastern Canada and where we were. And so it was like 5 hours east of Moscow. It was real Russia to me. And so one of the things I noticed when we got to the airport, it was small. It was really weird. It felt very Cold War-ish to me in that kind of sense. It was a beautiful countryside, but the city was it just felt like it was still stuck in the 1980s or whatever. And there was security in all our hotels because they weren't sure of all the other people from that area trying to get into our hotels as opposed to security for us to behave ourselves. It was a lot of dance music every morning in our hotel lobby. I do remember that. Yeah.
Like,
So they redid the hotel lobby because they wanted to make sure we had a 24-hour bar in the lobby. Apparently we all
It's
come with some
important.
pretty good reputations. Anyway, they recalled it, like they renamed it the McScrooge Bar, and it was all done in American US dollar bills as the wallpaper. And it just played 24 hours of dance music. So that was a good time. I had a cop, I believe there was a police officer that picked me up one time to drive me to the rink because we were just walking along. He was very nice, but I handed him his revolver. I think it was sitting in the back seat. I was just like, would you like to have this kind of things? But it was a really good, I loved it because it was so different.
Yeah.
And I would never change it. I would love to go back there. It's just because it's so different, but it's a good time.
So do you get to like, you were telling before about your sort of routine as a reporter when you're on the road with the team. Now you go to warm-ups, you have locker room access. Like, what's that relationship like with the players that you develop? Because like you were saying, you have to get storylines. Like you and I know what this life is like as a reporter and how that all works. But a lot of people are really unfamiliar with like, what do we actually do as reporters and like content creators and stuff like that? So tell us how that sort of evolves and how the relationships build and how you handle having to ask some tough questions to some of the players.
Good question, because it's changed a lot. It used to be, social media has changed everything drastically, and it's actually made probably our jobs a lot harder than they used to be, because they would open up the locker room and there'd be everybody just sitting there, and you could go over and sit next to a guy and have a chat or discuss whatever you needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go in the locker room, there may be 3 or 4 guys there, or you have to request a guy to come out, and then all the media that's there just assemble around the one guy, and then the guy leaves. And so you never really get a chance to have a whole lot of conversations. You do on some days when there's not a lot of media around and it's a Sunday and they're just practicing and there's not many guys to show up, you get to have a chat. But it's tough to develop as many kind of relationships as you used to have back. I'll call them the old days. You two are too young for this. That you would be able just to chill and be able to have conversations, and you get to know the people. And like, I remember, I would talk to a few parents all the time, and you know them. And so you end up knowing the entire families by the end of it. But players, it seems, A, change a lot more frequently in their teams, and B, don't want to say anything because of social media, and I don't blame them. So you don't see them out at bars as often. Like I don't mean to tell stories out of school, and I probably shouldn't, but there was one night that my friend of mine are downtown, and we run into a couple of players who we know, and we all end up being enjoying the night. And I remember calling my now wife, but my girlfriend at the time, who was actually covering the team as well for Canadian Press. And she came and picked us up. And so all of us are in the car, and she's now mad because I didn't tell her that they were coming in the car, and we're just trying to get them back home and stuff. But we have those kind of nights where you get to spend them, but it's very few and far between like it used to be.
Would you say that's probably your most memorable story, or is there another one that you could share with us?
Memorable that I can share.
What can you share? Like funny, something interesting with a player, funny road story. It could be funny. It doesn't have to be,
I may have to get back to you. There's probably been a few times. My first year I covered the Montreal Canadiens for Global TV before I went to TSN. And I remember going out one night with a member of the staff, and we were in Buffalo, actually, of all places. And it was one of my first road trips. Anyway, I had enjoyed a few extra, I've imbibed, I think the word is.
Adult beverages.
I just remember a couple of other players being out and how they were handling the situation they were in with perhaps females. So we had a good talk about that after. I don't know. Let's move on.
We can move on. That's just fine. Yeah. Yes.
None of these players are still in the league anymore, so we're good.
It's fine. But still, that's like a normal thing. They're humans. Yeah, they're players, but like they still, like, how do they meet their girlfriends and wives? Like, you've got to go out, you've got to be social, you've got to have conversations with ladies. This is all very normal. You're not speaking out of turn.
No, if it wasn't a player, it would be not the whole story wouldn't matter, right? But I just remember at that moment going, so this is how the NHL works. That was what it was my welcome to the NHL moment, actually.
That's funny. Well, speaking of memorable moments, you interviewed Bobby Ryan after his hat trick from returning back to the team. How was that?
I didn't know I was going to get through that interview, to be honest with you. And so I had known Bobby, obviously ever since he joined Ottawa. But on a side note that no one really knows is that my kid, his name is Ryan. And when Bobby came to Ottawa, I'll try and make this quick. When Bobby came to Ottawa, it was June, just before, or just after, sorry, it was July 1st or whatever, free agent day. My kid turned 6 on the 29th, and we made him an Ottawa Senator cake on June 29th, and it said Ryan number 6. And then Bobby comes a week later, and he signs, and now he's wearing number 6, and he has a Ryan number 6. So this is the tie-in. I'm getting to the point. So
it's a podcast. It's a podcast. This isn't TV. You can take as long as you want to tell your story.
Okay, so I told Bobby, I'm like, oh, actually, we had a Bobby Ryan jersey before you even had one. And so I told him why. And he ended up meeting my son, and they became kind of friends. Like, they knew each other. And my son would always draw him notes to say, good luck tonight. And I would hand them to him quietly. And I didn't think, I'm like, Bobby, you can throw these out. I don't care. I needed to make sure I deliver them because I told my kid I would. I didn't want to lie to him. And so I don't know if it was a year later or whatever, I met his wife at a game, and she's like, oh, you're Ryan's dad. And I'm like, sorry? She says, we put those up on the fridge. And so I've always had a soft spot for Bobby in that I knew his background beforehand, but he's always been so good to me, and he's been very good to my son. And there's a picture of the two of them in his bedroom. And so and then obviously when Bobby left, it was tough. And then that time when he came back, I knew what he had battled through, because we had talked in between when he had left and when he came back from rehab. And so I knew it was going to be, and I'll give you a hint, and I don't tell us I don't usually have my questions prepared, and you can probably tell now if you watch my interviews of how not good they are. But my question, so it's always on the fly. And I knew it when I got through the first one. And he said something to the effect that I owe this to I just wanted my wife to say she was proud of me. And I right there, I choked up. And so if you listen to it, you can hear the next one, and I'm barely able to try to get through it. And so I managed to get through it, which I'm shocked. And I'll obviously never forget that interview, but that was all because of Bobby. That had nothing to do with me. It was just, that was the pure emotion of a player who didn't give you a cliche, gave you an honest answer, and was as pure and as open as he could be in that situation.
Wow.
That's incredible.
What a guy.
That's the long-winded version. Sorry.
I love that. No, that's a great story, and it deserves
it goes back to when you talked about building relationships. It is like, you don't get to do that as often, but that's one where you got a chance to build a relationship outside of hockey where it became more important or more emotional because of it in an interview.
Yeah, he's an incredible guy. We heard a story from one of our previous guests she's just a fan, and he remembered her. She met him at like a charity event, and then, months or a year later, he saw her again and was like, hey, Chris. And it just meant the world to her. And I know how much, there's so much good and bad that comes with being an NHL player and a celebrity and a professional, somebody in the spotlight. But I think hockey guys in general handle it so well, and they really are down to earth. And I think that story you shared just really proves that. Would you agree with that statement?
I mean, I really like hockey players in general. They're my favorite. They're probably my favorite athletes. Amateur athletes by far are the best of all, but I mean, pro athletes, hockey players are probably my favorite. One is their salary structure is a lot less than the other guys. That's a big part of it. But the other part is a lot of small towns in the middle of nowhere where they've had to been brought up in a very parent-oriented type of family where they are pretty good that way. And I think back to, like, Bobby's had a pretty tough upbringing, but he's always been straight. Like, if anybody could hide or wanted to hide, it would be Bobby Ryan. And he was always, and he always has been, straightforward and says, this is what's going on. He somehow can't seem to be able to tell me anything that's not actually true. And he doesn't sugarcoat it, which is very good. And it's very rare for a player to do. And so that's one thing I do appreciate. And I just remembered a point you brought up earlier. You asked, how do you handle tough questions? Mm-hmm. And so Bobby's a perfect example, and there's been others throughout. If I ever had a tough question and I knew the player enough, I would go and I would start by saying, listen, before we start this conversation, I need to ask you this question. I just need to ask it. You can choose not to answer it, or you can turn and walk away now. And it could be anything, but I just don't want to ever make them uncomfortable on camera. And I've always told them that. So they've always seemed to be able to respect that I would never come over the top with a question that was unfair if it wasn't told beforehand. And I just, whether that's right or wrong, because people will be like, oh, you're setting them up. I have to go in that locker room every day to talk to people. And I have no desire to try and be the guy that's like, oh, what a great question you asked. You really showed him. I'm not a gotcha kind of reporter type.
No, I agree with that. I think that makes it even harder to build relationships with people. Yep. And yeah, maybe it makes for some gossipy content and you become, a flash in the pan as far as, an internet sensation, but that's not the longevity. And that's not why you're in this field. That's not why I'm in this field. And I don't think that's why you're in this field, And Brent, the other thing I was going to say, what I noticed when we were on the red carpet at the NHL Awards in 2019, the players who you do know, because you've interviewed them over the years, they all came up to you and asked you, how's your family? How's everything going? Before you could even ask them about how they are, their first question was like, what's happening with you? Everything good? And I was blown away by that, because I think that just speaks even more volume to the character of some of these guys, of all these guys.
Yeah, it makes me a bit uncomfortable, because I never want people to think that, oh, you're a fanboy or any of that stuff. And so I try to keep all that stuff privately quiet or whatever. And so, and at the end of the day, we're likely to these guys not going to be friends. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. It's just the reality of the business, where one day I could ask you a question, you could be upset about it for me. As soon as you're gone from this city, we don't have that that connection anymore. And so you've now moved on, and we're just not going to be friends based on how how our jobs operate, which is, and I don't have any ill will for that. Like Mike Fisher and I still talk, and he plays or he played in Nashville, whatever. But for the most part, it's just, we're just acquaintances or business partners, if you will, for lack of a better term. But they do actually care for the most part about how things are going, or they will check in occasionally to see how you're doing. So for those players that we built relationships over, it is good. Like I get to say that, yeah, Sidney Crosby is great with me and knows who I am, and we've had lots of conversations. And so, but we're never at the end of the day going to be hanging out at a bar together drinking whiskey.
Correct. But wait, before Breezy goes, I have to say, so are you saying that I am 1 degree of separation away from Carrie Underwood?
Yes. I'll give you a story, actually.
Please.
So here's my Carrie Underwood connection story. So I always like to say I don't like to ask for autographs. And I told you I have a Bobby Ryan autograph for my kid. However.
That's different. That's got a much deeper story there.
Yeah.
And my kid has a couple other things signed by Senators, and my daughter was very disappointed. And she became a Penguin fan because I spent so much time covering the Penguins in the playoffs. So I went to their PR person. I'll get back to Carrie Underwood in 1 second. I got their PR person to, I said, listen, I have a picture. My daughter doesn't have anything signed, and she'd like to have a Sidney Crosby picture signed. And he's like, just leave it with me. And I'm like, we don't ever have to have this conversation, because I know I can get fired or lose my pass for this. So anyway, the Penguins lost that night in Ottawa. I think it was bad. Anyway, all of a sudden the PR guy goes, Brent, what is your daughter's name? And I was like, it's Brooke. And so Sidney wanted to make sure it was autographed to her. And so I come back later and it says to Brooke, Sidney Crosby. Anyway, now my boy is terribly jealous that he doesn't have a Sidney Crosby picture. And my daughter, who doesn't play hockey, now has one hanging in a room. Anyway, back to Carrie Underwood. So my wife, as I mentioned, writes for Canadian Press, but she also used to write Mike Fisher's website for him. Anyway, so they would talk all the time on the phone, and Mike would actually talk to my boy about hockey. And so my boy wears number 12 because of Mike Fisher. So Mike has always been very good. He's one of those genuinely really good people in life. So it's my daughter's birthday. I don't know what year it is. He's playing in Nashville. So, and it's not her birthday, it's Christmas. And I wanted to be the cool dad. So she's got tickets to Carrie Underwood at concerts in Ottawa, and we're going to give that to her as a Christmas gift. And so I just happened to mention, I'm like, Mike, do you think I could get a CD signed? And so I brought the CD to practice one day because we were going to Nashville. And he goes, Brent, I think I can get you a CD. I'm like, well, no, I don't only have to pay for it. Hey, can you just quickly, I don't know, forge it? I don't care. Anyway, he came back with a signed CD for my daughter. And so I won Christmas that year, or maybe Santa did. But I thought that was, he was very good. So anyway, so my wife has met Carrie Underwood, but I just have the signed CD.
Oh my gosh, I adore her. I was in Nashville. My brother lives in Nashville, and I was there and I visited him, and we ended up going to a Keith Urban concert. And I was like thrilled. I was having a blast. And then the one song they do together, it's The Fighter, right? And it comes on, and I'm like, I love this song. And then I was like, it's Carrie Underwood. Like, she came out on the stage, and I was like hitting my brother. Like, I couldn't believe it was her. And I was like, it's Carrie Underwood. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Like, she's just got something special about her. Anyway, sorry, I fangirled for a moment, but I'm
at her. She's kind of a big deal.
That's funny. Well, while we're on the Mike Fisher talk, he obviously spent quite a few years in Ottawa. There was a story that when he first came back, the Senators actually booed him pretty bad. Obviously was only probably one night, but how would you describe, Senators fans, and were you at the game where he was booed, and how are they now?
I was, and I'm going to apologize, Breezy. I don't remember that happening.
Oh, that's fine.
Now, you could very well be right, because there's lots of stuff that I don't remember anymore, which is a bit of an issue for me sometimes. However, I don't remember that. I do know that he loved and revered and still is in this city. Even when he briefly comes back, Mike Fisher was, and I recently just had to pick an all-time team, which included the 1800s and early 1900s Ottawa Senators. And Mike Fisher was on my team for that group because of what he meant to the city. So he's continues to be a highly respected guy in this city for sure.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that it was either he was booed at the game, or I think even Carrie said that like they tried to go to like the grocery store or something. And
might be because fans got upset with Carrie because they thought Carrie took Mike Fisher. Yeah. And so fans kind of railed against her a little, saying, how dare you take Mike Fisher, because he's our second line center. We love him, and he's good looking, and he's a great hockey player. Yeah. And so that I do remember that. They were not happy with her. That is for sure.
Okay, maybe that's a story. Maybe I got it mixed up, but obviously doesn't have any reflection on the Sens army. But how would you describe, an Ottawa game and how the fans are? Are there any cool traditions or any fun chants or anything like that?
So Ottawa fans get a really tough go across the board, and partially because of the way the ticket sales are at the moment and how they aren't selling out. And
right.
That has a lot more to do with stuff off the ice than it does on it. This team will always be supported by this group. They just want different leadership at the top. And there's been so much turmoil gone on through this organization that the fans have now just said, I've had enough. Unless there's some change, we don't want to put our money anywhere near this organization. So they're getting a bad rap because people don't think they want to support the team. And I don't think that's fair. Now, there's a couple of issues why there's attendance. We could talk about this for hours. A big part is the Ottawa Senators have the biggest walk-up crowd in the entire National Hockey League because the biggest employer in this city is the federal government. Well, the federal government can't give tickets and can't receive tickets. So none of these people can get, when your boss goes, hey, I got tickets for tonight's game. Well, the hundreds of thousands of people that work here in the federal government can't get tickets that way, or can't, as a other company, you can't give them to the federal government, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So they have the biggest walk-up crowd in the entire National Hockey League. And they've had a pay system with the federal government, which has kept people from getting paid for 2 years, which is a whole other story. but it's affected the way people have gotten paid here in this city. So aside from all that, the fans, when they're in this building, or in, I guess this building would be a little smaller since my house, they're not all out here. When they're at the Canadian Tire Center, they are loud. They don't have a lot of, I guess, traditions, if you will. When Daniel Alfredson was playing in his last season, I thought one of the best one was when the clock went to 11:11 each period, they would chant his name. And so that one was always pretty cool. And they did it when he came back, when there's one game back with Detroit, they still chanted. I'm going to try and think. I think that might be one of the few that they've had. It's a group that likes to cheer when they have to, but they also want to watch the game, and they'll yell at the guy in front to sit down. So they're a bit of both. But I think fans here are very good. They support this team. They really buy in because it's the only professional sports team in this city. And so I shouldn't say that. They do have the Red Blacks here as well, the CFL team. But the Red Blacks hadn't been around for a long time. I think it was a decade until they brought the CFL back. And so it had been the only thing here. And people are all in with this hockey team. They do love it. And so I hope for better days ahead with this organization. I hope that perhaps they turn around on the ice, but more importantly off it.
Do you know if they, or have you seen that they travel well? I mean, is there like a specific arena that they tend to kind of migrate
you know
to?
what? It's a good point by you, because like Buffalo fans are here in flock. I think almost every game. Toronto fills the building. Montreal does the same. Ottawa doesn't have that kind of super fan base that travels very often. They do go to games to here and there, Toronto, Montreal, but for the most part, no, you don't get. And I love Buffalo fans. The only reason I bring them up because they have those hats with the blue horns, and so those are some of my favorite people to see. And it seems like because the ticket sales are so bad here, every team that comes through has got thousands of fans in this building on a nightly basis. So it actually makes the atmosphere better when you cheer for both teams. And so it's a little different here. It's certainly a challenge for people to try and sell tickets.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the team. Let's talk some actual ice on some hockey play. They didn't end, or whatever, the pause of the season. They're 30 of 31, not, high up, but lots of changes coming. So talk about the future of the team. The coach just had a presser, or what do we call them now? A Zoomer. Yeah. We don't have press conferences.
But I don't think that's going to catch on. I know they had a video chat, I guess.
Right. Did you attend that? How does that work?
I did.
Do you get to ask questions, or do they mute you? You can just watch.
You submit questions and then they ask. So
that's not a real presser. That's a
no.
Anyway.
But I will say, I'm trying to think here. They didn't hide they did Mark Borowiecki yesterday, and one of the questions that I had submitted was, do you think you played your final game as an Ottawa Senator? Because he's unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And Mark, if you don't know, is from Ottawa, and he bleeds for this team, and he's very well liked in this city. So
he stops crimes and all kinds of stuff.
He's a real life superhero. So how do you not cheer for that guy? Anyway, they did ask that question. So I'm not sure that they filtered too many of them out. But it is weird to try and write questions that get the same kind of tone as opposed to asking them. Anyway, so DJ Smith, the coach, did have his Zoomie. I'm going to make it work. I swear to God.
It's going to be like Fetch. We're going to make it happen.
Yeah, like Brexit. No one would have thought Brexit would have worked, right? So maybe Zoomie is that. Anyway, moving on. So this team is mentally a whole different group, I think, just based on the way DJ Smith has come in and said, we are going to change the way that we approach games, and it's a whole different kind of buy-in mentality, if you will, that if you're not ready to play every night, you're not going to play. So that was number one. Now they need personnel. And so no one expected this group to be very good this year, except perhaps the players who kept trying to lie to us saying, no, just watch, we're going to be good. Nobody thought they were going to be good. And in the end, they weren't very good. But they did play every night. They were entertaining. Now, I will say, as awful as their record is, they are an entertaining team to watch because they don't ever quit. So they could come back and win a game. They just don't fold. So that became something that they've kind of latched onto, is they're a hardworking group that's going to try and win regardless of what the score is at. So there's that. Now, going into the draft, this is a franchise-defining draft for them, no question, whenever that draft may be. They have 3 first-round picks. And as it stands right now, as you know, they're 30th, so they sit second and third overall in the lottery, and plus they have the Islanders pick. And then they've got, I think it's 9 picks in the first 3 rounds coming up.
Wow.
So depending on what – and obviously all these players can't play, so they're going to have to package some of these picks up to try and bring in players they need. And they do need a number 1 center. There's no question. In fact, they're weak down the middle throughout the lineups. They've got to change that in order to be competitive, because the way to win the NHL is you've got to be strong down the middle. So if they get, by chance, win the draft and get Alexei Lafreniere, they also need to find, I think, a center. Now, they always say draft the best players and then worry about the positions later, which is fine, but they've got to go find a number 1 center at some point. Now, it does bode well. The future looks good if all these players they keep trying to tout as being high-quality NHL players turn out that way. But as everybody knows, that's not always the case, and people that we draft in the first round, you don't always necessarily see them work out. So I think Ottawa's got a few of those. I think they're overselling a few guys, and so I'll wait to see in a couple of years where this franchise is at. But this draft, and I can't even say June, is going to certainly be one that sets this franchise either up for success or it might hinder it if they'd screw it up.
Yeah, good points. For sure. I mean, you kind of going back to earlier in this interview, you said you've obviously gone to Europe and you've been able to cover pretty much every major sporting event, right? How was it? I haven't done a
Super Bowl. I'd like to do a Super Bowl.
I
think I want to do a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's 3,000 media people. Like, what? I don't understand. Where are you coming from? But do I want to be in that group? But then you're just one guy in 3,000. Maybe I don't want to.
But you could be the guy in 3,000.
But then you've got to be dressed up in some like onesie or in like something that's ridiculous to get attention, because no one pays attention to anything else.
You could just wear a Canada flag onesie, and like, how many Canadians play in the NFL?
It's a great question.
I have no idea.
I think it's, and I shouldn't even comment. I think it's 20 or so, but I'm not 100% sure. Hey, but by the way, Kansas City Chief offensive lineman not only is now a Super Bowl champion, but he's a doctor.
What?
He got his doctor's degree while playing, and so he's a certified doctor. So, we don't only just play football; we do everything.
Yeah, you do. We don't have any doctors that are NHL players, do we?
No.
Do any of like
Google doctors, but no.
Can you think of any players in the league that have any other, like, you know how like on what's the show on HBO that the NFL does, the preseason thing? What's it called? Anyway, they do the, like, where they follow the preseason, they pick a team and they force them to be on television.
Yeah. Is that Hard Knocks? No.
Maybe not. Anyway, and they always show these players who are like these like big tough burly guys, and then he's like playing the violin or like doing something like completely opposite. Are there any like odd things like that with NHL players that you know of or have seen?
Yeah, there's a few. My favorite, and this is going way back, but is Joe Juneau. He went to RPI, and I can never pronounce that school's real name properly, but he was actually became I don't know if it's rocket scientist but I think it's rocket scientist. He was one of those really smart people, engineer. So he and his dad would build airplanes, and he ended up building an airplane. And so that was always the guy that I thought was perhaps the smartest. But it was back in the day when cell phones were kind of new and you weren't allowed to obviously have them on planes. And so the flight attendant was like, you need to turn your phone on. He's like, no, I don't. And she's like, yeah, that's the rule. And he's like, it's not going to affect anything. I build airplanes. So it was probably tough to argue with him about it because, I mean, he builds airplanes. So I was always the guy who's like, yeah, you're pretty smart.
That's funny. I mean, the only other, I guess, I don't know, career that I would say would probably be Matt Duchene wants to be a country singer.
Yeah. Now, but there's been others. Rick Dudley, when he was playing with Buffalo, recorded an album.
Really?
True, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another little known fact about Rick Dudley. He was a general manager of the Ottawa Senators, traded to Tampa for Rob Zaminer in 3 exhibition games. So I think he's the only GM to actually be traded in NHL history. So I'm full of useless information. So,
tell us more. Lay on some more facts.
but I think he's the only, they might be the only, or Dudley's the only guy to record an album, but that might not be right. Jeff Sanderson may have, because he had a pretty wild and crazy life. But there's been.
Well, I mean, a lot of like some of the players own bars, you know, like Sean Avery had a bar, but that was like towards the end of his career. And Chelios, right? Like some of the older guys, you know, have like restaurants and businesses and stuff like that, right?
Chris Neal owns, I'm pretty sure he still owns it, or at least he's got his name attached to it, is a oil change business. So didn't see that coming, did you?
No.
Chris Phillips started a brewery with like a micro craft brewery, whatever, became a huge success. And so he just sold that. But
Ryan Reeves has a beer company.
Yeah.
And there's some other, but nothing like super odd, like
one of the Knights just opened up a restaurant in Vegas. They like collaborated with Wolfgang Puck, I think.
Nice.
Right? Yeah.
Good to know.
That organization does everything right. I haven't seen anything it's done wrong yet so far.
They nailed it. I think, were they one of the first teams during this whole quarantine? I think, or I could be wrong, but they were one of the first teams that had all their players get on their phones, record a message, whip out a video, and put it on social media of like, stay home, we love you, we're sorry. Like, they are all over it.
They've nailed it. They just seem to have all the right people doing everything in the right spots. And so I've really noticed everything that the Seams Vegas has done, right down to how they've launched. It just seems to be done at first class. So it's way off topic, but
this is good. Sorry, I'm going to jump on another, since like we're talking about Vegas and starting as a new team. What are your thoughts on Seattle and like how is all that going to play out? I don't know. Do you think they're going to have as big of a like impact on the city as Vegas did?
It's pretty tough because Vegas never had a pro team of any sort, right?
Right.
They did have the IHL team a while back. I actually have one of their jerseys for some strange reason. But I don't. It's going to be tough to match the way Vegas and the hoopla that surrounded it. But maybe I'm so far removed from Seattle and what that vibe is like to understand what it's like in that market. But I mean, they've waited a long time. They've put in a lot of money and done a lot of things there that it's obviously, I think, going to be a fun time to be there. But I'd be tough to say that they can do the same as Vegas. When you have that strip in Vegas and all the amenities and all that star power you're allowed to have, it's tough to compete with that.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Seattle's going to be as big as Vegas was. I mean, you have the Canucks that are also right there, so it's kind of going to be a little wishy-washy, I guess. But so I'm going to circle back again. I was trying to get to this point. I think I don't remember. But do you have any prospects that you like?
Josh Norris is certainly high on my list. I think he's. I hate to nail them and say, hey, you're a bona fide all-star, but he looks really good. I think Jacob Bernard Docker, who, if all goes according to plan, should probably be expected to play perhaps this year in the National Hockey League. He looks really good as a guy that you try to pin hopes on or look towards. Marcus Holberg, they weren't expecting to see this year play in the National Hockey League, but Craig Anderson gets hurt and Anders Nielsen gets hurt and all kinds of things happen. And so while his goals against average is high, he has certainly, I think half his games or half his wins have been in overtime. He's kept this team in it or tried to give them a chance to win on a nightly basis. So he looks like he could be now the new number one guy. They've got there's a few I'm not sold on Logan Brown. They seem to want to continue to say, because he's 6'6" and he's got some great hands. I'm just not sure he's going to be able to adapt. Maybe he's got great numbers in the American Hockey League. I just haven't seen it so far in the NHL. That may still come. There's Drake Batherson and Alex Formanton as wingers who certainly look good, and I'm thinking they can make the jump at some point, but yet they're still trying to find their way perhaps. But Ottawa certainly seems to have a lot of pieces. There's no chance they're all going to be able to play here in this city because there's just not enough spots in the roster, obviously. And so how this all plays out will be interesting because at some point they've got to figure out who they need to keep and who they need to move to try and bring in some other players.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of young players, what are your thoughts on Mr. Brady Tkachuck?
Yeah, and what Tkachuck family stories can you tell us?
That's a great question. Okay, hold on. Let's go to Brady the player. So Brady is fun. He's still a little bit old school, but yet he's brought up in the new school way where he's knows how to condition and he is kind of careful with what he says, but yet he's not overly cautious where he likes to have fun. I've done some fun interviews with him, and he's certainly seems wiser than he is at 20 years old. He's certainly a more mature person that way, but still a kid at heart, still likes to have fun. I love him on the ice because he's just – I would hate to see – if he came to Ottawa, I'd be like, God, that guy's annoying. Why doesn't someone just punch his lights out? But if he's on your team, like a Brad Marchand, you want him on your team because he's fun. And he annoys people to no end. And he's just like your little annoying brother, but fun to watch. And so I think he's going to be a superstar in the NHL when he becomes strong and they can't move him in front of the net. So I look forward to that because it's fun to watch, and he certainly brings it on a nightly basis. Off the ice, I mean, I interviewed Keith Tkachuck playing, and I don't ever remember him being as fun as he is as a dad. So recently they came back. It was the Tkachuck brothers came back for round 3, and everybody comes to town with grandparents. And I finally met his mom, Chantel, for the first time. And so it was our broadcast. It was actually split broadcast. So it was our regional broadcast for Ottawa, and there was also a Calgary regional broadcast. But it was on a competing network, Sportsnet. So we've got 2 competing networks trying to cover the same story. And so I lined up an interview in-game with Chantel, the mom, and Brady had yet to score in this 3-game series. And so I needed to bring her, and this is going to be a long story, I need to bring her halfway around the rink to my studio spot because I don't have a wireless microphone because I can't afford one. So, so she's nervous. She doesn't really want to do the interview. Not that she doesn't want to. She just doesn't want to say the wrong thing, and she's nervous because she's watching her 2 kids go on the ice and go at each other. So I totally understand that. As a hockey parent now, I totally appreciate it, and I hate taking their time away because you want them to enjoy the moment. You don't want to be the annoying guy that's like, hey, you're going to miss half a period. Why don't you come talk to me? So she agrees to come over. But in the meantime, they start talking to me during warm-ups and stuff, and I don't want to be in there because I'm like, no, you should watch, and everybody's there trying. But we talk, and finally, and I take my earpiece out, so my producer in the truck couldn't talk to me. But in the meantime, I get a phone call. I'm ignoring it. I'm like, there's so much going on. They're trying to yell at me to get out of the camera shot because I'm ruining it for everybody. Because both broadcasts are trying to have this shot, and I'm just too busy mucking it up with the parents. And I'm like, I found out later they were like, why weren't you listening to me? I'm like, sorry. So
it's hilarious.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, geez, this is going to go well. Anyway, take her over to the interview. And just as we're standing there, Brady scores. Now I'm trying to like stick the mic in, like to get her reaction. Like, wait a second. And I felt bad because now she's not with her family to see Brady score. But she was very gracious. She was super nice. I love their family. She was sweet as can be. And I kind of ruined their moment, but she's like, I was very nice. I was right there to see it right in front of me. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of a cool moment, but I kind of I do a lot of those things. You guys don't get to see my career unfold, but I do a lot of those.
Hey, I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, she was lucky to at least be with you, and you're watching the game and you're paying attention, and she got to see it.
She was very good. Like, there's been a few of those interviews that have been fun to do, and certainly talking to dads now is so much more fun. I got to talk to a couple of first NHL games where the guy has scored. Max Lajoie scored, and got to talk to his parents who were right after, who were very emotional. That stuff is really fun. You feel like you're being intrusive, but it's so fun to see the reaction and to get that feeling of how cool it is to be in that moment. But there's all kinds of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that obviously people don't see. And so in Philadelphia, this is way off topic, but it's the way my world works sometimes, is I'm on the bench doing a warm-up interview, and I have to go now and run from the bench to the elevator to get upstairs to do the opening. And we only do it a few times, but I've got like 3 minutes. And so I'm running. And I know you guys don't understand, or everybody knows we're Philadelphia, how it's laid out, but I come around a corner and I wipe out. And I've now, it gets better. So I hit my chin now. It's great. Now I'm bleeding. Oh. And so now I'm wet and I'm thinking I'm ripped my suit, but luckily my suit's okay. People are laughing at me. I'm okay. So I get upstairs and I remember Jay McLennan, the color analyst, goes, "What happened?" And so I'm trying to put more makeup on, hoping that it's not going to bleed while I do the opening of the show. Those kinds of things happen more often than I care to think. But I don't know how we get from Brady Tkachuk to me wiping out in Philadelphia, but welcome to my world.
That's okay. I ended up talking about baseball somehow the other day. So, sometimes the conversation just goes where it goes. What are you going to do? So you've covered how many? No. Okay. So just explain to me like what you get assigned when it comes to Stanley Cup finals. So even if the Sens aren't in the playoffs, do you still cover it for the network? And do you go to all the games? Like, how does that whole thing work? And then tell me, like, after that, like, maybe what's been the most exciting one you've covered or something you really enjoyed?
Okay, so where do I start? It used to be we would cover all of them. So if you're on the series, you did games 1 to 7 or whatever. But recently, due to mostly money, and now we found it easier because of traveling in between cities, and there isn't an NHL charter anymore, is that we'll leave a reporter in each city, and one will and then there'll be a third one who will travel with the team the whole time. So on those off days, there's always somebody to get the sound in each city. So nowadays, we just stay where. And so for me, last year it was Boston. That was last year, right? It just seems to go by. I run them all together. I think I've only missed one since like 2006 kind of thing. And that was Vancouver, Boston. I don't think I did that series. But the first one I did was like 2002, somewhere in there, because Ottawa had lost in the Eastern Final in 2001 to New Jersey. And there's this funny story here. You know what? I'll tell you the story because we like to hear your stories. So
we want all the stories, and it's okay if they're long. We love the stories.
So I did Ottawa's first real playoff run that I did was 2001, where they went to the Eastern Conference Final. I think it was their first trip there ever. They lost in 7 games to New Jersey on a messed up goal, if you will, but it doesn't really matter. Point is, every time I talked to Bobby Holik in the New Jersey dressing room, he would score the game-winning goal. I think he scored 3 game-winning goals in the Eastern Conference Final. And so I told him, and he's like, hey, so it became a joke after the first 2. And he's like, are you talking to me today? So I talked to him. He ended up scoring. I'm pretty sure it's a series clinching goal. They all run together now, but I'm almost certain he scored the series clinching goal. I told him, I'm like, Bobby, I'm not going to the Stanley Cup final. And he's like, what? I was like, this is it. I'm done after this. I think I did 56 of 58 days. I think I'd covered that playoff run. And anyway, so he's like, what's your number? And I'm like, and he's like, I got to call you. So he called me in the afternoon of the games. And so Bobby Holik scored, if I'm not mistaken, the Stanley Cup game-winning goal of that year for the New Jersey Devils.
So you were his superstition. You were his good luck, and he had to talk to you.
Yeah, I'll never get mentioned in the book, but yeah. So what's funny, recently they had him on the radio here in Ottawa, and Ian Mendez knew that story, and he said, I always wanted to talk to you about Brent Wallace, and he's like, tell him I said hi. And so so he does remember, which is nice. Anyway, yeah.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. That's so funny. Cool.
That might be 03. I apologize if my years are wrong, but anyway.
It's okay.
Hey, they all run together nowadays.
When you're my age, they just all run together.
Go ahead, Breezy. What were you going to say?
You asked me favorite Stanley Cup.
Fine. Oh, yeah, or like the favorite one you've covered, or like something crazy.
There's been a couple. One would be Pittsburgh winning. Max Talbot scored the Game 7 goal. I think he had 2 that game. And so whenever there's a Game 7, as you know, everybody goes, hey, do you want to be that guy? The questions are always the same. Like, have you dreamt about it? And he's like, oh, I played my hockey in my driveway, and I've always the Game 7 goal. Right. So Max Talbot always said, why can't it be me? He said that in the morning. And I always remembered him saying that. So he ended up scoring the 2 goals, whatever. And I remember going back to him and just having that chat after. I'm like, it was pretty neat how he's like, yeah, like if you want it, you got to believe it. And so that was always a cool one to see him score. The last year's was really good. I thought Boston winning in Game 7 was right. Boston won Game 7 last year. Yes. No, they lost.
No, they lost.
Yeah. But
they lost to St. Louis.
St. Louis. Yes.
It's okay. They've been in the playoffs and had a lot of games. That was a tough game. I didn't even get to watch that game. I was on an airplane that did not have Wi-Fi, and I could not watch the game. I was traveling for work, and I was devastated because I got off the plane, like the plane landed, and I immediately put my phone on and flipped into social, and everybody was live streaming on the ice with the Blues, and I was like, I hate that I missed this. I had watched every other game in that series, and it was like, of course.
That series was really good, and I apologize for messing that up. I do all the time, but I was on the ice at the end, and I have pictures of us standing there with the Stanley Cup. I was there. But that one was kind of neat because St. Louis had done so much to come back and win. And Jake Allen, who ended up becoming the backup goalie, obviously, for St. Louis, is from Fredericton, where I'm from. And so we knew each other that way. So it was nice to see him get a Stanley Cup. You talked about missing important events. Here's mine. As you may know, hockey's a big deal in Canada. And so Vancouver hosted the Olympics in 2010. And I did I wasn't supposed to cover hockey. I was supposed to cover all the alpine events up at Whistler. I was supposed to be in Whistler as a reporter, but they were like, we need you as the backup reporter. So you've got a backup anchor. So you've got to move to Vancouver to do Vancouver, and you're going to do hockey. I'm like, oh, all right. In fact, I didn't really want to do it because I cover all those professional hockey players all the time. I was looking forward to talking to amateurs actually about just different things and how different it is when the Olympics is their event. But that's how jaded I am about the NHL, apparently. So, so I'm now covering the entire Olympic hockey, and it ended up becoming obviously pretty cool. But they told me the day before, 2 days before the gold medal game, I knew that Canada was in there. Like, Brent, we have to send you back to Toronto. You need to anchor Sportscentre the next day after because we can't get one of the anchors in, and so we're sending you back. So I'm flying now during the gold medal game.
Oh.
So I get in the cab in Toronto. I'm like, can you turn on the game, please? And so it's now in the 3rd period. And I remember getting to my hotel and sitting in the lobby watching it, and and then the intermission, and it goes overtime. So I go up to my room in between, and I sit on the bed. And then I woke up to Chris Cuthbert yelling, Sidney Crosby scores the golden goal. Yeah, I fell asleep. I didn't see it.
Oh, no. What an alarm clock, though.
Yeah.
Crosby. I could just hear it. Oh, my God.
What is yelling? What is going on? I was so tired. But, yeah, it was – yeah. Anyway,
it's funny. I mean, your schedule when you travel and all that, that's grueling, I mean, you're not playing on the ice, but it's still it's
worse. Because they get the charter planes, right? So they literally just – everything is done for the player, right? The bus is there. Everything, you don't have to arrange anything. So when you're traveling, like what year was so? I think it's 2010, Philadelphia, Chicago Stanley Cup final. Yes, was that 2012? 2012, right? Because that was the year of the lockout. No, that would have been
that
was the Rangers.
It's 2010. You were right. The 09-10 season. That was the first year the Hawks won 10, 13, and 15.
So there are 82 games in the schedule, and then there's the playoffs. I did 24 playoff games, and I don't think any of them were in my city that year. So that one was I lost 14 pounds, I remember, in that year. And so the series was coming back to Philadelphia, and I asked, I'm like, can I not cover any more hockey? So I didn't cover like the last game or 2 games or whatever it was of that series of the Cup final. Yeah, I was like, I just want to go home.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest grinds. But Europe is all like, we do if you do a World Junior or World Championship, it's like last year was 27 days. I think the London Olympics, it was 33 days, something like that. Those ones get to be a bit of a grind, but you get into a groove after a while, and it feels like it's kind of like home, or you know where everything's at. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah. How's the home, family life when you're on the road? It's probably kind of hard, but
Well,
talk about missing games.
Back.
Talk about missing moments, right? Probably.
Oh, I missed my daughter's first steps. And so my wife tried to play it cool, and she was like, she didn't tell me. And she's like, when I saw her walk the first time when I got home, she's like, oh, she walked. And it was like, I don't know. 3 days later, she's like, actually, she walked 2 days beforehand or something. I don't know. So yeah, I missed that. I used to buy all my kids' clothes on the road. In fact,
yeah,
I used to buy, I was buying like 80% of all my kids' clothes. How we got into this, I have no idea. But you do miss moments. But the biggest thing I found out was when you go away or like playoffs or long trips, when you come back, you mess up everything. Because for 3 weeks, they are now in a routine. They now know everything that's going on and who's the voice and how everything gets done. And you show up and you throw a wrench into everything because now it's a different voice and it's different schedules and whatever. So when I've never had this conversation with anybody before, but I would come back, I would be cranky, and then everybody else would be cranky because of you just mess up the entire dynamic. And so I had to literally figure out that it was me causing the disruption because of how you're trying to acclimate back into a family. It's quite interesting. I had no idea. And so it was my wife who pointed it out. And then I was like, I gotcha.
Yeah, that's got to be challenging. Yeah. And, you want to you're tired because what you've been, it's not like you were on vacation, you're off and working and you're exhausted, and she's exhausted because she's been dealing with the kids. And that's a challenge.
Yeah. So I miss Mother's Day is always during the playoffs.
Right.
And so I missed, I think, the first 6 or 7 Mother's Day. So the next one, whatever it is, number 7, I fly home during the day, and I fall asleep on the couch on Mother's Day.
You have this problem of falling asleep at a very important moments, apparently.
Yeah, do you have any idea how much trouble that can cause a person when you do that? Yeah. So I've never lived that down, but the gifts you get afterwards are pretty good.
Yeah,
I bet. Yeah.
You got to make it up. You have no choice.
That's true.
I love that coach. I slept a lot of nights there.
Do you, I was going to say, do you want to talk World Cup of Hockey, or do you want to tell us about that? Tell us about your experience there, and then we'll wrap it, get towards the end here.
Trying to remember the World. I do remember going through it, but it was such a different experience because it wasn't Olympics and it wasn't the NHL. And so it was just a different feel, but it was still best on best. But that was so there's been 2, right? 04 and there was no 4 World Cup, right? That was Vinny Lecavalier scored.
I don't know. I'm going to look it up.
That's the one I remember.
I'll produce you. Give me a minute. I'll look it up.
I remember a lot because that was scored in Toronto, and it was the first one they had done, and that one was kind of neat to do. Adam Graves.
So 96, 04, 2016. No World Cup of Hockey this year, obviously.
No, there'd be no World Cup of Hockey of any hockey.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we're in for a long haul. But 04 was fun because Adam Graves was my color analyst, if you will, or my analyst throughout that. And I didn't really know him that well. And we got to know each other pretty well. And so we become friends, and still to this day, we still chat a bit whenever I go to New York, whatever, and he's around, we have a chat. So that one was really good for me. And the players, that was a really cool tournament just based on who the players were. The 2016, I do remember, covering it, but it didn't really seem to have the same excitement level to me because probably of the Olympics that have been on in 2010, and it's tough to match what happened in 2010 in Vancouver with a World Cup of Hockey. And even in So 2014, the Olympics.
Oh yeah, how does
Russia,
the
right? Sochi,
Olympics? Right,
it's
they're on
tough
the
to compete with those
evens.
now on the World Cup, and so it was good. It's just they just don't do it for me compared to an Olympic event, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, have you? I'm gonna jump back again. Have you ever been to a cup party, a Stanley Cup party?
Or are you allowed to tell us? You're not allowed to tell us. All right, that's fine. That's fair.
I have been around the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
I actually took the Stanley Cup to, I think it's at Mandalay Bay. There was a bar there called -5, Ice Bar. And so there was one day where they wanted to promote the awards were coming to Vegas in 2010 or whatever it was. And so with the couple of guys from the Hockey Hall of Fame, Mike Bolt being one of them, we took a limo everywhere. We had the Stanley Cup, and we had, I think it was the Art Ross and the Selke and maybe the Norris or some. We had some other trophy. We're treating like rock stars for a day. So we took them into this ice bar where they've got now girls around them, and I've got a fur coat on, sipping out of an ice mug kind of thing.
Pimp Daddy style.
That picture ended up on the wall there for a couple of years. Anyway, we took it to a pool bar where they're being waxed or whatever, and then we went to Love, the Cirque du Soleil show Love, where we took the Stanley Cup out back, and a lot of the Cirque du Soleil members are Canadians, and they knew that the Stanley Cup was coming, so they all had jerseys on, so they were all fawning over the Stanley Cup. It actually, I've never seen a reaction to anything like there is with the Stanley Cup being around. It actually is pretty neat. So that's one of my fun moments with the Stanley Cup. There have been other times I have seen it out at night.
We'll leave it at that. We don't want to make you dance.
It sparkles at night, apparently.
Oh, that's good.
That's funny.
I've not partied with the cup. Breezy, I was right next to it on the red carpet with you, like at the awards, which was pretty cool. And really hard not to want to like lean over the rope and just touch it. But I am a believer in that, like, I am not allowed to touch the cup unless my team has won it, because it's just such a highly deserved thing. So,
but I'm not winning it. So
I know, but still, like, what about the superstition for my team?
But what effect do you have on the team?
I clearly think I have an effect on the team, as does every other fan of any team.
Like,
they're like,
same with the conference final trophies. What difference does it make if the player picks it up or doesn't pick it up? There's been a study done, and it doesn't matter.
Well, tell that to your buddy Sydney, because he clearly believes in superstitions.
I think Sydney's pretty superstitious that way.
Yeah, but like, there's like, everybody has their superstition. Like, I think, people believe in like not washing their jersey if they're at home watching the game and their team plays. Like, I don't know, explain this. We think we have some sort of stake in the game. It gives us a stake in the game. Maybe that's
fair.
what it is.
But it's also crazy, but it's fair.
That's fine. I'll take that. But I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't live with that on my head for whatever reason, for whatever reason.
What if it's an air popper Stanley Cup popcorn maker? Can you pick that thing up?
Yeah. Come on. I
just wanted to know.
Yeah, I would touch that. A fake cup? Sure. No problem.
So, all right, there's 2 Stanley Cups.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So would you touch one if it's the one that isn't the one at the Hockey Hall of Fame?
Not touching it. Not unless the Blackhawks win. Am I touching it?
Oh.
I'm going with it.
I touched the backup one.
See?
Breezy's got it.
Thank you for that.
Breezy, you've never partied with the cup though, right?
No. I haven't, no.
Oh, are you like, do you have a story you can't share?
No. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I have. No, just kidding. No, I think, I obviously saw the cup when I was out here in LA, but I never got close to it. I saw it from a distance, but yeah, I've never partied with the cup. It'd be fun. I'd love to. If someone wants to invite me, I'd be down.
Pass the word around, Brent. Let everybody know. to invite Breezy, and I'll come, but I won't touch it. I'll come for, the atmosphere.
I feel like it'd be fun to drink some beer out of it. I would probably do that, but yeah.
All right, we ask everybody these questions, so you're subject to this, Brent. Who's your favorite hockey hunk?
Is there pardon?
Like hunk, who do you think is the hunkiest of the guys? We ask guys and girls these questions. So we've had, Fisher or, Sid, I don't know. Who's your favorite hockey hunk?
Okay, so before I answer this, I've never given this any thought. So I don't have an answer prepared.
Okay.
It could be off looks. It could be off skill. It could be a combination of both, whatever you think.
Mike Fisher, I have no idea.
Yeah,
he's a good one.
He's a good looking one.
Mine's a lot of pictures taken of him, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah.
Well, mine is Sharpie. I have, it could be.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
Sharpie's just gorgeous. Breezy's is Yossi. So,
he's a really good dude. I really like Roman Yossi.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Never met him, hopefully.
Deserves, and I'm not a big fan of handing out longevity trophies, but he should have won a Norris Trophy already.
Yep. Anyway. Yeah, I agree. This year, hopefully he'll
well, I'm hoping that people haven't paid attention to the John Carlson stuff at the beginning of the year and watched a full body of work, but
yeah.
I'm not getting into the voting because it'll just bother me.
All right, it's not. And what about favorite hockey lady? It can be
For the love of God, Rachel.
I told you we ask everybody these questions. You can also say no comment. I mean, by all means.
No, wait. See, Ottawa's had a couple of celebrity girlfriends. So
perfect.
Carrie Underwood. There was Carol Alt, who was a supermodel that Alexei Yashin is still married to. Mike Comrie and
Hillary Duff, right?
Right. Then there's Dion Phaneuf married to Alicia Cuthbert. So,
that's
and I think there's another one, but it's been yeah, I know Ottawa for some reason has had its fair share. So I'm going to pick, I guess, the easy one because I feel like I'm on the spot. I'm going to go with Carrie Underwood.
Do it. It's just supposed to be fun. This isn't supposed to be
I feel like there's one there that I'm missing that should be, and now I don't know what the answer is.
And do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite team? We were talking a little bit prior to on air, and you don't have a favorite team. You follow players that you really like. So.
And your favorite.
I grew up an Islander fan. All my stuffed animals were named after the Islanders. My big blue dog was Billy Smith. I had a little baseball manager, so that had to be Al Arbor. So I did have a bunch of Islanders, and of course there was a Brent Sutter on the team. How exciting, at the same name.
Oh my God.
So and I love I hated Wayne Gretzky, despite the fact there's a picture here of his last game in Ottawa. But I hated Wayne Gretzky when he played because the Islanders and them would always battle it out. So I never appreciated Wayne Gretzky, but loved Mike Bossy. So I grew up an Islander fan. I could care less now who wins, but there are always people that I will cheer for, on a daily basis. And they don't have to play for the Senators by far. Like James Reimer and I became buddies. If we had more time, I'd tell you a good James Reimer story. But there's lots of people throughout the league as players come and go through Ottawa. You see them on different teams. But I'll cheer for players. I could care less who wins.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I think that's it. Breezy, you good? Any last burning questions?
I don't think so. I think I'm good. This has been fun. Great stories, and I've enjoyed it.
Epic stories. Thank you for sharing. So we covered so much. Thank you for taking the time to give everybody a glimpse into your life and what it's like being on the road and being with a team in that way and all the stuff you've experienced. So thank you, Brent.
You're welcome. It's fun. Anytime.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.